John Solomon, welcome to the program. John?
Good to be with you.
Hey, thank you very much. I just look at the last time you were on with me was 2023, and I'm thinking we have got to have John Solomon on more than that.
I would love it. Count me in anytime you want.
You're the best. Okay, so
thank you, sir.
I saw this report, and give me some hope. I so desperately want to believe. John, give me some hope.
Yeah, listen, this is a very real thing. The FBI has opened a predicated investigation. That's mean that there's enough evidence to support a belief that crimes occurred on viewing the last 10 years as an ongoing conspiracy by the deep state and Democrats to protect Democrats from possible criminal prosecution, people like Hillary Clinton and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, and to foist upon Donald Trump and his supporters investigations that weren't warranted by the evidence. And when you go through that, you can cycle through this and begin to put a very clear pattern and timeline. Hillary Clinton gets let off on the email case, even though the FBI got new intelligence early, just a few weeks before James Comey cleared her, that said that maybe there was a criminal matter. They ignore it. They clear her on the same day. They start working towards putting Donald Trump under the bogus Russia collusion investigation. Fast forward to 2020, there are three events that protect Democrats: the effort to call Hunter Biden's laptop disinformation, the impeachment scandal to make it look like Donald Trump had a Ukraine problem when it was Joe Biden. And in August of 2020, the FBI gets an extraordinary piece of intelligence that China is trying to hijack the election by creating bogus mail-in ballots for Joe Biden. And they don't investigate it. They pull back and actually turn a blind eye to it. Then you go all the way down to 2022, the Jack Smith stuff, Joe Biden sicking the prosecutors on Donald Trump when he himself has a classified documents problem, but instead they're going to project that on Donald Trump. And you can go all the way to 24, where Joe Biden's mental decline is covered up by the White House to try to influence the election. Kash Patel's document, or the FBI's document, treats this as an ongoing conspiracy. Now, why is that important? It allows you to go back and charge events that are outside the statute of limitations, and you don't have to do this in D.C. Many of the overt acts occurred in Florida with the raid of President Trump's home, so you could potentially have a grand jury in a trial in Florida where the jury is probably more likely to consider the evidence fairly.
Okay, I don't want to get my hopes up. I heard John. I heard this in the ongoing conspiracy that is remarkable. That will take care of everything that we have. I mean, because nobody has been prosecuted for anything, and you just list a lot of really important possible crimes, and most of those are past the statute of limitations. But if they say this is an ongoing conspiracy, they can go all the way back past that statute of limitations and charge everybody. However, and the other good part is you could possibly do it in Florida. So if you're not doing it in Washington, D.C. or New York, you have a chance of actually a fair trial. But we have been let down over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Many more times than we've ever been given a moment of relief and hope.
Right.
I think this is going to turn on two very important events, and they'll have to happen soon in the next week or two. The first is, will Pam Bondi appoint a special prosecutor and give them the full authority and resources you do? You can't do this at the FBI while you're also trying to stop criminals and the counterintelligence threats. You got to break this off. Give a person who focuses on it full time the ability to do it, and panel that grand jury, and then treat this like a real investigation. The second is there are two pieces of evidence. It's remarkable, given all the Russiagate and other documents that we've gotten, that these two highly classified documents have never been released. But they are the ignition point. They are the events that would help a jury understand the beginning and then the repetition of this pattern. There is a set of documents in a classified annex in the DOJ Inspector General report about Hillary Clinton being let off in the email scandal that show that just before James Comey cleared her, intelligence came in that suggested there was a serious criminal matter, and the FBI chose, under James Comey, not to investigate that. The Democrat gets off in the face of perhaps really damning evidence. The second piece is a document.
Wait. Do we know what that evidence was? Do we?
We only have the description of Chuck Grassley in one letter. Chuck Grassley has spent 8 years trying to get this information released, and I think he is about to succeed with President Trump. But basically it just says foreign intelligence came in that the FBI should have investigated, and it didn't, and instead it just waved a magic wand and exonerated Hillary Clinton. We don't know more than that. It's highly classified. I believe it's at the top secret compartmentalized level. So it's sensitive, but I think Chuck Grassley may have the president's attention, and this may happen. Now you know that maybe Hillary Clinton, there's another piece of evidence that we didn't know about that Hillary Clinton perhaps got off on when, in fact, she might have been prosecuted. That establishes Democrats getting off, like Hunter Biden afterwards, and all the other things that happened. The flip side is a piece of evidence that John Durham, the special prosecutor, who did try to indict some people in D.C. but couldn't get him convicted, he writes in his final report about the Clinton plan intelligence. It's an intercept that the United States intelligence intercepted in July before the FBI opened up the clearly corrupt Crossfire Hurricane investigation, an unwarranted investigation of Russia collusion. A couple of days before that, the U.S. intelligence community intercepts that Hillary Clinton has personally approved a plan to hang a Russian shingle on Donald Trump's campaign house, to basically concoct a scandal to make it look like Russia is trying to help Donald Trump win the election so that they can get by Hillary Clinton's own Russia problems. Remember, Bill Clinton had taken the $500,000 speech fee from Russia, and they got all the money for the foundation from Russian interest. So the government knows before it opens up on Donald Trump, that Hillary Clinton is concocting the very thing they're about to investigate, and they go ahead and proceed with that.
Wow.
Now, we don't know what the intercept is specifically, but I think if we get that released, and John Durham clearly was begging for it to be released in his report, those two pieces give us the ignition of this recurring cycle of let Democrats off and pin down Republicans with bogus scandals.
The FBI has both of those?
They do. They're both, believe it or not, in classified annexes of reports. So the first one is in the possession of the Justice Department Inspector General. He got access to that intelligence, and that would be the easiest place to declassify it from. Pam Bondi and the president could do that. The second is in the John Durham report. He also created a classified annex to his report that has that explosive Clinton plan intelligence. So Pam Bondi and the president could do that. The FBI is well aware of this. It's part of the reason why the Kash Patel FBI opened up the conspiracy case. But unless you can share it with a grand jury because it's declassified, you're going to keep the grand jurors in the dark on what may be two of the most explosive pieces of evidence we haven't had.
What makes you believe? I'm trying to keep hope alive here.
Yeah.
What makes you believe that this will actually happen?
Oh, listen, I'm a reporter. I start with a cynical look at everything. I don't know if it will happen. I do know that the events that I identify in the story have happened. Now, the investigation was opened about 3 months ago by the FBI. I have talked to some people who were consulted by the Justice Department. Would you consider being a special counsel or a deputy special counsel? Now, remember, special counsels have to be Senate confirmed, so it would be better to have a U.S. attorney. And if you don't have a U.S. attorney, maybe you go and name someone who's a cabinet secretary who's a former prosecutor. Lee Zeldin at EPA was a prosecutor earlier in his life. He's Senate confirmed. He was part of the team that broke the Russia collusion delusion out in the public. What if you named him and you just sped things up? Those are the things that have happened. Now, the only reason I'm going to believe it is if Donald Trump declassifies and Pam Bondi appoints a special counsel. We'll see if they do that. It won't take long. Listen, this is not rocket science. They could do this tomorrow if they chose to.
Do they have to do it before the statute of limitation runs out on people like Brennan?
Well, a lot of the events on Brennan go back to 16, Comey go back to 16. So, but they would be wrapped into a conspiracy. You can bring them forward. There's plenty of events that have occurred in 2022, 23, and 24 that keep the statute alive for several years. The raid on Mar-a-Lago over the objections of the FBI. That could be an overt act. There's a very small window left on the China intelligence. The China intelligence comes in August. That's still about 6 or 8 weeks out. If you open the investigation now, you might be able to toll the statute on that. But there are several events that occur between 2022 and 2024, the cover-up of Joe Biden's mental decline, that keep a long window for a special prosecutor to bring the whole kitchen in. This is basically a kitchen sink conspiracy case. But that's how you went after the mob back in the 80s and 90s with Rudy Giuliani. You can tie events together. There's several years of statute on some events that are part of the alleged conspiracy. So they'd have time to do this, but time's a ticking, and it's up to President Trump and Pam Bondi. If they want to pursue what Kash Patel has started, just announce it this week. Get it going.
Is there any reason you can think of that Donald Trump would not want to do this?
I haven't talked to him yet. I'm going to try to interview him in the next day or two if they'll allow me to, but I'd like to find out, will you declassify it? What do you think about it? At the end of the day, the president usually will keep a hands-off thing on the Justice Department, so it's going to come down to Pam Bondi, who's had a bumpy start to her tenure, for sure.
You think?
But at the same time, she is smart. She understands things. This could be a gift horse that just showed up at her door. And if she runs with it, I think the American public will get an accounting that they've never gotten for, and potentially accountability to some of these bad actors who had a spin cycle. It just kept going over and over again. Commit a crime, project the crime on the other guys, create a false scandal. They did that several times. Now is it time to unravel that, create punishment so it doesn't happen again in the future.
John, I started the podcast earlier today with a phone call from somebody who I think really expressed what a lot of us are feeling about the Pam Bondi, debacle here on Epstein. And he said, look, there's nothing more important than crimes against children. And all of our guts are saying there's something really wrong here. And now we're being told to shut up and sit down. And we're being told this without giving us, as he said, help me believe. I want to believe. Help me believe. What is your take on the Epstein thing and why is it just Pam Bondi that has bungled this thing, or what is it?
Listen, the FBI turned over everything it has. There's no doubt about that. I've done reporting on that.
Right.
I think Pam Bondi simply raised the expectation of this maybe to have a Fox News moment or just to have one of those sort of excitement moments, and wasn't well prepared, and so overstated what was there. And then they've been rolling backwards ever since. Now, I think there are two places that President Trump, Pam Bondi, and the American public could benefit by focusing on. We've focused on what the FBI got, but probably the most interesting evidence is still under seal in the grand jury in the Southern District of New York. Every time you see someone talking about this, those documents aren't mentioned. I think that's what people like the lawyers for Epstein were talking about. Alan Dershowitz was talking about this the other day. I think that you look at the grand juries, and there are two grand juries. There's one in the state of Florida, and then there's one in Southern District of New York. The state of Florida is out of Pam Bondi's control now, though it would have been under control back then. Get that information out. Get the information at the Southern District of New York. Create a Vaughn index of all the documents. Let the people see what's been released, what's not being released, and the reason it isn't being released. You'd have a moment of transparency that would reboot the confidence of the American people to trust going forward. The second place to look is that it is clear that Jeffrey Epstein had some interactions with United States intelligence. I do not believe he was an asset. He wasn't a knock. He wasn't a controlled source for the CIA, but at various times he would have had interactions with the CIA and the people around the CIA. By Jeffrey Epstein's own admission in an interview he did several years ago before his death, he admitted that he was working with a Saudi Arabian businessman named Khashoggi back in the 1980s when Khashoggi was the main man for the Iran-Contra transactions between the Reagan administration, Iran, and the Contra rebels. It's impossible that Jeffrey Epstein, with that level of relationship, didn't run into the CIA and most likely ran into the CIA, again, a few times. And my sources tell me there's a few other interactions. Let's get that out, too. He's dead. There's no reason to hide this information. So Florida grand jury, Southern District, New York grand jury, unsealed, and whatever the CIA has on Epstein, I think that would give a great accountability. It would get Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, and the FBI focused on other bigger things than this. I don't think there's going to be a lot of surprises, but the lack of trust that they've created can be easily fixed with that.
Thank you. Thank you. That's why I had John on today. Thank you. You gave me hope on Friday. You gave me hope again today. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
I love your show. Thanks, Glenn.
You got it. Bye-bye. John Solomon, Just the News. If you don't follow his reports, you should. JustTheNews.com. He's also on X at J Solomon Reports. He worked for the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. And he finally said enough is enough, and he left and he started his own thing because they wouldn't let him cover things. And he does an outstanding job. That's what we should be asking for. I wrote those things down. Those are the things we should be asking for. And I think we should also perhaps start to ask the president and Pam Bondi to open a grand jury on a grand conspiracy. They'll know exactly what we're talking about. And the FBI has done all the groundwork. Now it's just up to Pam Bondi and the president to allow those two documents to be unsealed or to be declassified. When it comes to Epstein, unseal the documents in the courts. And I don't need to know everybody's name. You can redact all of the names. When it comes to anybody who is a possible victim, just X out their names. I have no problem with that. I don't think anybody wants to know that. We just need, help us help you, please. Help us help you. Because there is a real lack of trust. And if we don't repair this, the Republic is once again at stake as much and if not worse than it was before. Because we're now taking all of the people who believe in the country and we're dividing them even more. We can't continue to divide.